You guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new, hello, my name is Nora. And if you are a returner, if you're a returning family, cuzzo, what's really good, and welcome back. So today we are starting like a new series, a new little kind of type of video I want to start doing here on my channel. If you've been following along for a while, I used to do a lot of girl talk videos. Now don't be alarmed. They're not completely gone. Granted, it's been a really long time since I've done one anyways, but they're not completely gone. I'm kind of revamping and rethinking the way I want to bring back vlogs on my channel. So I think those kind of more personal girl talk, not really fashion or style focused type videos or topics will probably be more in vlogs. But I still wanted to have these kind of like sit down chit chatty videos because I find that a lot of you actually really enjoy these and I really enjoy them as well. But I really still wanted it to be tailored to kind of the focus, if you would say, of my channel. So welcome to the Fashion Corner. Okay, welcome to the Fashion Corner, where we are going to be talking about, I don't even necessarily want to say fashion news, but just like things going on in the fashion world, fashion space, retail space, that I think might be kind of fun to talk about. So to kick us off for this kind of first installment in the Fashion Corner, we're going to talk about the rebrand era. And I am so excited to talk about this. Again, I think I've mentioned it quite a few times when talking about Coach specifically, and I've actually had quite a few people comment here on YouTube and on my other social platforms to just be like, yo, Nora, talk about it a little bit. Like, we're curious to just know, is it just some of us who's peeping that like Coach came back with a vengeance? Has that always kind of been the case? Like, let's just talk about it. What's tea? So I figured I definitely wanted to talk about Coach's rebrand. But as I was thinking through that, I was like, there's actually quite a few brands that I feel like that have been doing their own kind of like fashion rebrand right now as well. So I figured it'd be kind of cool to kick off, like I said, the Fashion Corner with our first installment talking about the rebrand era. So we're just gonna kind of go through a couple different brands that come top of mind to me and just kind of share why we're noticing, right? Why we're noticing some of the girls, you know, are putting together looks. They're giving us moments. They're giving us the fashions. They're giving us the drip, okay? And kind of how that's been happening and what that's been doing to the fashion market. Hopefully y'all enjoy this video. I wanted to start off with a little bit of a longer intro just because, again, it is a new kind of series here on my channel. Hopefully y'all are into it. And if you're interested in hearing more, let's jump right in. FYI, if y'all hear me sniffling, eyes kind of getting, girl, allergies is kicking my ass, okay? Allergies is kicking my ass. I'm already a Zyrtec in, so I'm trying my best, but just wanted to apologize about that, heads up. So before we even kind of go into this again, if you're like, Nora, what the hell are you talking about, rebrand era? I feel like a lot of us noticed a lot of popular brands, popular stores, fashion stores, all of a sudden started to come back. Honestly, I really feel like top of 2024, maybe even end of 2023, we're really coming back with the looks, okay? It was like brands that, as a millennial, I am 33 years old, I'll be 34 this year, so a lot of these brands were super popular when I was in like middle school, high school, and then they kind of fell off, right? They kind of fell off a little bit. They wasn't really giving us the moments, they wasn't giving us the looks. They kind of felt stuck in middle school, right? They kind of felt stuck in high school, and then all of a sudden, these brands kind of like slowly started coming back and popping back up, and all of us was like, what's tea? So that's kind of what we're talking about here today, is this rebrand era. You know, looking at these brands on how they were able to, again, kind of have a resurgence, you know, back into the market. Now, of course, this is not to say that people were not shopping at these stores. These brands still, they very much were still doing pretty well. Were they at their peak and thriving the same way? No, but people were still shopping there. And of course, to kick us off is Coach. Baby, I don't know if you live in under a rock, but every single social media platform you can go on, there's always a Coach bag of the moment. There's always a Coach bag of the season. Coach has been doing their thing. And let me tell you, at middle school, high school, Norah, I had the Coach wristlets, I had a Coach ring, the jewelry, I had the sneakers. Like, what are we talking about? Coach was the moment, okay? If you were, you know, some girlies were able to do the LV Speedies pretty early on. I wasn't quite, you know, in that tax bracket. My mama wasn't getting me no Louis Vuitton quite yet in middle school, but Coach, we were there. And it's funny how I think a lot of times people think of Coach as like super low tier, but like, baby, Coach literally has some of the finest leather on the market. And not just now, they've had some of the best leather on the market for a while. I don't remember exactly which brands, but I think there are a couple other high-end luxury brands that actually source some of their leather from Coach. So it's not to say that the quality of their items weren't always good. I think for Coach, and this is my opinion at this point right here, I think for Coach, kind of like I was saying a little bit earlier, they stayed in one era. They stayed in one spot. And you know, looking back at a lot of the items that I had, it was very Y2K, it was very late 90s, and I find that whenever I did pop into Coach afterwards, it still felt like that. So I think that's probably a big reason why a lot of their audience and their shoppers kind of stopped going to Coach the way that they did. Well, baby, Coach said, you know what, we peeping this. And of course, don't mind me, y'all know I got my handy dandy cell phone here. I took notes, okay, because I want to make sure that I am sharing proper information with all of you all. But Coach, I think, definitely noticed that as well and really started, you know, investing into their organization. So I know they got a newer, and I say newer because he's already been there now for about 12 years, but they had a new creative director come in right around like 2013, Stuart Bevers, who came into Coach, and definitely I would say kind of led the charge of the rebrand. But baby, let me tell you something. Right next to every strong man is a black woman, and let me tell you, at Coach ain't no different. Now, I'm not gonna say that she's the end-all be-all reason as well to why you see this resurgence, but I know my sister is part of it. If you have ever heard of our girl Chi, okay, brown girl Chi Smalls, I'll put up her handles and some of her like content here. I follow her everywhere, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, love her down, okay? New York girl, East Coast girl. She is the Senior Director of Product Development at Coach, and I've actually watched quite a few of her videos where she shows, you know, traveling abroad to actually help in producing a lot of the phenomenal bags that we are seeing at Coach. So I had to give the flowers to Chi Smalls. Again, I'm not saying that it's only her, but as Senior Director of Products at Coach, it'd be hard for me to not mention my girl and saying that she's probably in them rooms sharing with them folks what the people are looking for, and it has been evident. We think about the Coach Empire carry-all bag, which I think is really like what I would say is the first bag that really brought Coach back on the scene. Probably the Coach Empire carry-all and then the Coach Brooklyn bag. From there, I feel like Coach kicked down them doors again, and it has just been go, go, go nonstop for them, and they have absolutely been crushing it, okay? I think what they've been doing really well kind of in this resurgence and this go around is they're capitalizing on that quiet luxury, you know, that kind of started to get really, really big, where the girls wanted beautiful bags and just like accessories and things to carry, but didn't want the crazy logo. And Coach was giving you exactly that. So you could get that clean girl aesthetic, that quiet luxury look at a pretty, and I'm using it loosely, a pretty good price. Of course, there are definitely still bags at Coach that I'm gonna say they are not cheap by any means necessary. Y'all have seen my Coach Empire carry-all. I always forget what size I have, but that's like a $600, $700 bag. So this is not cheap. We are not talking high street fast fashion, but you are getting beautifully crafted, good quality leather goods at what I like to say when you're looking at some of the other higher end luxury brands at a price point that's a little bit more accessible. It's a little bit more of an entry point for people who want to invest in good quality bags. Coach is crushing it, okay? And then of course now they're giving us different styles, different colors. They've got all the little like charms that everyone is adding to their bags. Coach, I think, has really found their way in the market and are giving all the girlies and the boys, you know, different options for what they need. I'm super excited, honestly, to see it because, again, maybe it's just the nostalgia for me thinking about how much I loved Coach growing up. Love their bags. Again, really appreciate just the different silhouettes and options that they give. My mom is a Coach girl down, okay? She's single-handedly keeping Coach in business. She is a Coach girl down, but there are honestly just so many different options for folks that I think are really excited at Coach. And not just with bags. I know I keep mentioning a couple different bags and accessories as well. Coach's ready to wear. I honestly, again, props to my mom because I feel like she's the one who's really introduced me more to Coach's ready to wear, their clothing items. Coach has pieces, okay? They have pieces that I'm like, why have I been sleeping under a rock? Okay, I can honestly say I've been under a rock clearly when it comes to their ready to wear. When I look at a lot of their items, it very much gives me Michael Kors, kind of like a Ralph Lauren type of vibe. Beautiful, okay? Absolutely beautiful. And again, I think Coach right now is doing a phenomenal job where they're not too niche, they're not too trendy. There is genuinely something for everyone at Coach. I just think they are crushing it. And honestly, I know we always call it kind of like a rebrand, a resurgence. Coach is gonna be that girl. She's gonna be that girl. She's gonna be on top for a while. I could not film this video without talking about Gap. And honestly, for the sake of this video, we're gonna talk really at like the Gap Inc. level because I think we are seeing it not only just in Gap, but with a lot of their other brands as well. Old Navy, Banana Republic, who else they own? I think Athleta as well, maybe, I don't even know, I might be making that up entirely, but just thinking about like Gap, Old Navy, Banana Republic, Gap Inc. is another brand and company that we need to be talking about. If you follow me on TikTok, y'all saw I had a good little shopping experience at Gap. I went in there and I was like, hold on. This is not just the Gap logo hoodie Gap anymore. You know what I'm saying? And again, as that millennial, that's kind of what I think about. If you had a Gap hoodie, baby, your parents was doing all right. Okay, you was that girl. You had a Gap hoodie, you had an LL Bean backpack, or if you're from the Northeast, you had a North Face backpack and a Gap hoodie. Gap also too, though, I think really kind of stayed in that preppy, kind of like nautical feel, if you will. I'm trying to think of all my adjectives right now, but Gap was that, right? So again, I think when I look back at Gap, Old Navy, even Banana Republic, they very much tailored to one customer. They tailored to one kind of shopper. They tailored to one type of, for lack of better words, aesthetic. So as I mentioned on my recent shopping trip, it definitely intrigued me to kind of just like do a little bit of research to figure out, okay, what exactly has been going on? Because again, I do find that Gap, even Old Navy, Banana Republic, the items are just that much more elevated and that much more inclusive in terms of styles and aesthetics. Did my little digging around and my research makes perfect sense. At the top of last year, Zac Posen stepped in as the creative director over at Gap Inc. You've probably heard this name before, even if you're not necessarily somebody who's a nerd like me who has Vogue subscriptions and has the Vogue app and all that other nonsense. You've probably heard the name. Very, very well-known, famous stylist. Also has a brand, eponymous brand after his name, Zac Posen. I believe he was on one of those like fashion shows, maybe like Project Runway or something like that. Again, don't quote me exactly, but he stepped in last year at the top of the year as the creative director over at Gap Inc. I said, makes sense, makes sense. I'll pop up some pictures here probably of some like very famous looks that you've probably seen styled from Zac Posen. And if you step into these stores now, it's very evident. I feel like especially Gap and Banana Republic, just because I've shopped at both of them pretty recently. I don't frequent Old Navy that often, but shopping in both of those stores, there was just something so fresh about all the items in there, okay? Again, they had something for everyone, and I think that's what a lot of these brands are realizing as, of course, you probably have your brand identity and you don't want to lose that, but as the years go on, listen, we have more and more options of where we can shop, okay? A lot more options of where we can shop. We have a lot more online retailers, and of course, ever since the pandemic, we was doing a lot of online shopping, so people are not really going into stores the same way that they used to. I feel like it's picking up. I do, I'm not gonna lie. Last couple times I've been going into the stores, I'm like, okay, maybe we could say brick and mortar, obviously for not all the brands, but people are shopping. I think people are shopping. People are wanting to wear clothes again because we're going outside a little bit more after being in a parallelogram for as long as we were. Brands are realizing that people are shopping, okay? People are shopping again. People are going into the stores, and with as many options that we have, not to say that everyone needs to copy each other and just be providing the same styles and the same looks. No, but you do need to be a little bit more inclusive with what you're offering to the people shopping into your stores and hopefully new customers. And I definitely think Gap has been doing exactly that. Like I said, in my last little haul, I was pleasantly surprised at the amount of pieces that I found in there. And I have to say, the pricing wasn't that bad. Still, I wouldn't compare it necessarily to, you know, a Forever 21 or anything like that, but not terrible, and especially for the great quality that you are going to get. Banana Republic, baby girl, if you are someone who loves a capsule type of wardrobe, baby, Banana Republic is where you need to be, okay? Banana Republic is definitely giving the looks. When it comes to accessories, they're crushing it as well. Gap too, I have to say, I actually just bought quite a few accessories for a trip that I have coming up, but overall, it is very evident. And again, I'm sure it's not just Zach Posen himself. Of course, they have teams and other folks as well that are on those teams, but there's a reason why they're called creative directors, right? You know, they're giving that creative direction to the brand. And it's been really exciting and again, refreshing to see all the nostalgia pulling on this millennials heartstrings. So I am happy to see a lot of these brands kind of coming back on the scene. Now, we could not talk about a rebrand era, okay, without mentioning Abercrombie. And I am smiling because if you don't know this about me, I worked at Abercrombie in college, okay? I was an Abercrombie girl. When they used to call them models, I don't think they called them that anymore, child, okay? Because we know one thing about Abercrombie, they're gonna get a lawsuit, okay? They're gonna have a lawsuit against them, you know, for allegedly, you know, a lot of different things. So Abercrombie is another one, again, that pulls on this millennials heartstrings. And let me tell y'all, Abercrombie pushing out their old CEO, I think he was CEO or president, you know, who used to ruffle a lot of feathers. Best decision they could have made, because Abercrombie has been killing it from A to Z, and for a little bit now, honestly. I feel like Abercrombie's rebranding kind of resurgence has been going on for a couple of years now, and they have been crushing it, okay? Another place as well where I think they were kind of stuck in that era, okay? They were giving us a bunch of hoodies with really large, obnoxious logos. Everything just very much felt juvenile, to be honest. You know, even me working there in college, yes, I wore some of the clothing because you had to as an employee, but even at that time, I could already tell that I was like slowly phasing out of Abercrombie. It just felt very young, very juvenile. And of course, the brand's identity was very heavily rooted in kind of like West Coast vibe and West Coast style, which again makes sense. And especially I think for at that time, who they were tailoring their clothes to and their audience, it made sense. But unfortunately, that audience grows up, right? That audience started to grow up and was exploring different things. We're going to college, we're going to the clubs. Maybe I personally was not going to the clubs in an Abercrombie hoodie and sweatpants. I was going in a blazer and business casual. So it just wasn't making sense, you know, for the age and like the folks who were traditionally shopping there. So I think, again, a tale as old as time, a lot of these brands got stuck in kind of what they thought was their sole brand identity, and they lost a lot of their customer base. And then of course with Abercrombie, they had a lot of other nonsense going on, child. They had a lot of other things going on, and it makes sense that they were struggling. But Abercrombie, again, like I said, it's been a couple years now, not even just in the last year, has been giving us phenomenal pieces. Their denim, y'all know I talk about their denim all the time. I think they have some of the best denim on the market. I think pricing is really, really good. I also love how much Abercrombie now has been so much more inclusive with their clothing and sizing. Another big issue with them, I remember even me working there, that was something that was always really tough because it was clear that they were tailoring only to one type of customer. So I'm really happy to see as well just how inclusive they've gotten with a lot of their clothing. If you have shopped there before, you know, like with their denim, they do offer different sizes, they offer different lengths. They have their whole Curve Love collection, which is really made, you know, for the girlies with that body, you know, who want to make sure fits nicely on their waist, but also gives, you know, their hips and thighs and butts some shape and some movement as well. Like I love their denim. They also have kind of like created this whole kind of elevated aspect as well to their brand, where I'm seeing the girls on TikTok buying bridal shower dresses, wedding guest dresses, like a lot of different occasions now that you can actually go shopping for in Abercrombie, which again, for a really, really long time, that wasn't the case. You were not thinking about Abercrombie as a place to go get a dress for a baby shower. Like you just were not. It wasn't what you were thinking of that store of. They were just the super dark store at the mall that is overwhelmingly scented. You know, for me personally, I love the smell, baby. I mean, working in there, you didn't even notice, but that's what they were, of course. And I think some of the stores are still a little dark. They're turning the lights up a little bit. They're turning up the lights a little bit. They're turning the music down a little bit so you can hear yourself think. But Abercrombie has definitely shifted, again, I think who they are focusing on as their customer, their audience. They're trying to be a little bit more inclusive. They're changing, even all jokes aside, the shopping experience. And I think looking at all of these brands and companies that we've talked about today, one thing that I think is like a common thread through is that rebranding doesn't have to be scary, right? Rebranding doesn't mean that you have to lose your entire identity as a company, as an organization. Some of you do. Abercrombie did have a brand and an identity that was attached to them that they needed to separate themselves from. But I do think you can still be who you are to your core. I think the brands can still be themselves, and I think a lot of them have done a good job of trying to find a balance between the two. Wait, family, I loved this video, okay? I loved this. This just got me so excited for this new series. I've started planning a couple of the other like installments episodes already, but hopefully y'all enjoyed this video. That's all I've got for us here today. Tried not to make this too long. Y'all know I get to chatting. Maybe it was evident as well too how excited I was about this topic, so I hope I didn't like go off super long-winded in a bunch of tangents. But let me know what you thought of the video. Has this even been something you've thought about, the rebrands and like resurgence of a lot of these brands? Are there any other brands out there that you kind of feel like, yo, Norah, I feel like they had a complete turnaround as well? Let me know down below. Let's continue the conversation. And then of course, if you are interested in maybe any specific topics that you'd want me to talk about here on the Fashion Corner. Okay, I might even spell it that way, corner. You know what I'm saying? Because it's the corner. We on the Fashion Corner, on the stoop. You know, talking about fashion, talking all things style. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. And until next time, I'll see you in my next video. Bye, y'all.